Difficulties strengthen the mind, as labor does the body. Seneca, they tell you to stay positive, to visualize success. They sell you dreams wrapped in cotton candy, while the wolves sharpen their teeth in the shadows. That saccharine optimism is a liability. It blinds you to the brutal calculus of power. We are not about empty affirmations. We are about equipping you with the mental armor to face the storm, to remain sovereign when everything collapses. This is not a path for the faint of heart. It demands a clear-eyed assessment of reality, a willingness to confront uncomfortable truths, and the unwavering resolve to act decisively, even when paralyzed by fear. True calm is not the absence of fear, but the mastery of it. It is understanding that pressure is not a force to be feared, but a tool to be wielded. A diamond is not formed in comfort, but under immense pressure. The same principle applies to the human spirit. The ability to remain calm under pressure is the ultimate advantage. It allows you to see clearly when others are blinded by panic, to think rationally when others are consumed by emotion, to act decisively when others are paralyzed by indecision. This is not about suppressing your emotions. Emotions are valuable data, but they should inform your decisions, not dictate them. The key is to cultivate a detached awareness of your emotional state, to observe your feelings without becoming consumed by them. Like a general surveying the battlefield, you must maintain a strategic overview, analyzing the situation with cold, calculating logic. The world rewards those who can maintain their composure, who can think clearly and act decisively, even in the face of chaos. Cultivate this ability and you will become a force to be reckoned with. You will be the eye of the storm, the calm amidst the chaos, the master of your own destiny. It begins with a simple realization that you are not defined by your circumstances but by your response to them. Pressure is inevitable, suffering is unavoidable, but your reaction is always within your control. Choose to remain calm, choose to think clearly, choose to act decisively. The world is a battlefield and only the prepared survive. The psychological mechanism behind remaining calm under pressure is rooted in the ability to consciously regulate the amygdala, the brain's emotional center. High-pressure situations trigger an amygdala hijack, flooding the system with stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline, impairing cognitive function and rational thought. This hijack manifests as panic, anxiety, and a narrowed focus solely on immediate threats, preventing strategic thinking and long-term planning. To counteract this, one must cultivate mindful awareness, the practice of observing thoughts and feelings without judgment. This detachment creates a buffer between the emotional impulse and the behavioral response, allowing for a more reasoned assessment of the situation. It's about acknowledging the fear, the anxiety, the anger, without letting it control your actions. Visualize it as observing a turbulent river from the riverbank, acknowledging its power without being swept away by its current. A useful technique is the practice of mental rehearsal, vividly imagining stressful scenarios and rehearsing calm, calculated responses. This preemptive preparation rewires the neural pathways, making a calm reaction more automatic when the actual pressure hits. The more detailed the mental rehearsal, the more effective it becomes. Imagine the sights, the sounds, the smells, the specific words that might be spoken, and then meticulously plan your responses. This creates a cognitive script that the brain can follow when under duress. Furthermore, controlling your breathing is a physiological tool to influence your mental state. Slow, deep breaths activate the parasympathetic nervous system, which counteracts the fight-or-flight response triggered by the amygdala. Deliberate breathing sends signals to the brain that you are safe, reducing the release of stress hormones and promoting a sense of calm and control. Box breathing, a technique involving inhaling for 4 seconds, holding for 4 seconds, exhaling for 4 seconds, and holding for 4 seconds, is particularly effective in regulating the nervous system. Consistency is paramount. Just as a muscle weakens without exercise, the ability to remain calm under pressure diminishes without regular practice. Seek out opportunities to deliberately expose yourself to controlled amounts of stress. This could involve taking on challenging projects, engaging in public speaking, or participating in competitive activities. The goal is not to eliminate stress, but to build resilience to it, to condition your mind and body to function optimally even when under duress. Another key aspect is understanding your own limitations and vulnerabilities. Knowing your triggers, the specific situations or stimuli that are most likely to provoke an emotional reaction, allows you to prepare coping strategies in advance. This self-awareness is not a sign of weakness, but a strategic advantage, enabling you to anticipate and mitigate potential threats to your composure. Moreover, focusing on what you can control, rather than dwelling on what you cannot, is essential. In high-pressure situations, there are often numerous variables outside of your direct influence. Fixating on these uncontrollable factors leads to anxiety and a sense of helplessness. Instead, concentrate your energy on the elements that you can manage: your preparation, your strategy, your execution. This focus shifts your perspective from victim to agent, empowering you to take decisive action. Consider the Stoic philosophy of focusing on what is within your sphere of influence, accepting what is not, and cultivating wisdom to know the difference. Finally, cultivate a long-term perspective. High-pressure situations are often perceived as immediate threats with catastrophic consequences. By zooming out and considering the bigger picture, you can reduce the perceived severity of the situation and maintain a more balanced perspective. Remind yourself of your long-term goals, your values, and your overall purpose. This provides a framework for interpreting the present challenge and prevents it from overwhelming your sense of self. This is not about minimizing the importance of the situation, but about placing it within a larger context, preventing it from distorting your judgment. The capacity to remain calm under pressure is not an innate trait, but a cultivated skill. It requires conscious effort, consistent practice, and a deep understanding of your own psychological and physiological responses. It is an investment in your resilience, your effectiveness, and your overall well-being. Now let us examine a scenario where composure was not merely an advantage, but the singular factor separating triumph from utter ruin. Picture the landscape of Renaissance Italy, a tapestry of competing city-states, each vying for power and influence through diplomacy, intrigue, and when necessary, brute force. Cesare Borgia, the illegitimate son of Pope Alexander VI, stands as a figure of both fascination and terror. He was a man driven by ambition, a master strategist, and a ruthless executor of his will. Borgia sought to carve out his own dominion in the fragmented Italian peninsula, a task fraught with peril. He faced enemies on all sides: powerful families like the Orsini and the Colonna, rival city-states such as Florence and Venice, and even the shifting allegiances within his own papal court. One particular episode highlights the critical importance of remaining calm under immense pressure. Borgia, through a combination of cunning and military prowess, had managed to subdue several key territories in the Romagna region. However, his success bred resentment and fear among his former allies, who saw his growing power as a direct threat to their own survival. These disgruntled lords, led by figures like Vitellozzo Vitelli and Alvarado da Fermo, formed a coalition against Borgia, known as the Machiavelli conspiracy. They plotted to overthrow him and restore their own autonomy. Borgia, initially caught off guard by this betrayal, found himself in a precarious position. His forces were scattered, his finances strained, and his enemies were united against him. Panic would have been a natural response, a descent into reactive decision-making that could have easily led to his downfall. However, Borgia possessed a remarkable capacity for composure, a cold-bloodedness that allowed him to assess the situation with chilling clarity. Instead of lashing out in anger or succumbing to despair, he meticulously analyzed the strengths and weaknesses of his enemies. He recognized that the coalition was fragile, held together by mutual fear and resentment rather than genuine trust or shared goals. He understood that its leaders were driven by personal ambition and susceptible to flattery and manipulation. Borgia, therefore, adopted a strategy of calculated deception. He feigned weakness, sending conciliatory messages to the conspirators, expressing his regret for any perceived offenses and offering to negotiate a peaceful settlement. He lulled them into a false sense of security, convincing them that he was willing to compromise and relinquish his ambitions. Meanwhile, under the guise of reconciliation, Borgia secretly consolidated his forces and gathered intelligence on his enemies' movements. He identified their vulnerabilities, exploited their rivalries, and patiently waited for the opportune moment to strike. The conspirators, blinded by their arrogance and lured by the promise of easy victory, fell into Borgia's trap. They agreed to meet with him at Sinigaglia, ostensibly to finalize the terms of the peace agreement. As they arrived, unsuspecting and lightly guarded, Borgia's soldiers sprang the ambush. Vitellozzo Vitelli, Alvarato da Fermo, and the other leaders of the conspiracy were seized and summarily executed. With a single, decisive stroke, Borgia had eliminated his enemies and crushed the rebellion. The key to Borgia's success was not brute force or overwhelming military power. It was his ability to remain calm under pressure, to think strategically, and to exploit the weaknesses of his adversaries. Had he panicked, reacted impulsively, or succumbed to the fear and uncertainty that surrounded him, he would have likely been defeated and his ambitions would have been crushed. Instead, he maintained his composure, assessed the situation objectively, and executed a plan with ruthless precision. This historical example illustrates the profound impact of remaining calm under pressure. It is not merely a desirable trait, but a critical skill for navigating complex and dangerous situations. It allows you to think clearly, make sound decisions, and seize opportunities that would otherwise be missed. It is the foundation of effective leadership, strategic thinking, and ultimately, the ability to achieve your goals in the face of adversity. The ability to detach emotionally from a high-stakes scenario allows for a more objective assessment of the landscape. In the chaos of the moment, the noise of conflicting opinions, and the urgency of immediate demands, it is easy to lose sight of the core objectives. A calm mind acts as a filter, sifting through the extraneous information and identifying the critical elements that demand attention. This detached perspective also enables one to anticipate the potential consequences of different courses of action. By stepping back from the immediate pressure, you can envision the ripple effects of your decisions and make choices that are aligned with your long-term goals. This is not about being unemotional or indifferent, but about controlling your emotional responses so that they do not cloud your judgment. It is about harnessing your emotions as a source of energy and motivation, rather than allowing them to dictate your actions. Furthermore, maintaining composure under pressure sends a powerful signal to those around you. It inspires confidence, fosters trust, and projects an image of competence and control. In a crisis, people naturally look to leaders for guidance and reassurance. A calm and collected leader can instill a sense of stability and purpose, motivating others to perform at their best. Conversely, a leader who panics or becomes overwhelmed can create chaos and undermine morale. Therefore, the ability to remain calm is not only beneficial for your own well-being, but also for the well-being of those you lead. It is a crucial ingredient for building strong teams, fostering effective communication, and achieving collective goals. Consider the pressure cooker environment of a high-stakes negotiation. The parties involved are often deeply entrenched in their positions, the stakes are high, and the potential for conflict is ever present. In such a scenario, maintaining composure is paramount. A negotiator who loses their temper, becomes defensive, or allows their emotions to get the better of them is likely to make concessions they will later regret, damage their relationships with the other parties, and ultimately fail to achieve their objectives. On the other hand, a negotiator who remains calm, listens attentively, and responds thoughtfully is more likely to build rapport, identify common ground, and reach a mutually beneficial agreement. They are better able to de-escalate tensions, navigate difficult conversations, and find creative solutions to complex problems. This ability to remain calm is not just about suppressing emotions, it is about understanding them and using them strategically. It is about recognizing your own triggers, developing coping mechanisms, and cultivating a mindset of resilience. It is about preparing for the inevitable challenges and setbacks that will arise in any negotiation and developing strategies for overcoming them. By mastering the art of composure, you can transform a high-pressure situation from a source of anxiety and stress into an opportunity for growth and success. The capacity to remain calm under pressure is a cornerstone of effective leadership, strategic thinking, and overall resilience. It is not a passive trait, but an active skill that can be cultivated through conscious effort and consistent practice. It is an investment in your ability to navigate challenges, achieve your goals, and thrive in a world of constant change and uncertainty. The trap lies in believing that composure is an innate gift, bestowed upon a select few and unattainable for the rest. This misconception breeds a sense of helplessness, a self-fulfilling prophecy where the individual anticipates failure under pressure and subsequently succumbs to it. They perceive their own anxiety as an insurmountable obstacle, a sign of weakness that confirms their inadequacy. This perception alone cripples their ability to think clearly and act decisively. They become prisoners of their own fear, paralyzed by the prospect of making a mistake or appearing foolish. Their focus shifts inward, obsessing over their internal state rather than analyzing the external situation. This self-absorption blinds them to opportunities and impairs their judgment. They react impulsively, driven by emotion rather than reason, and invariably make choices that exacerbate their predicament. The inability to regulate emotions is often rooted in a deeper lack of self-awareness. Individuals who are poorly attuned to their own feelings are less able to anticipate their reactions in stressful situations. They are caught off guard by their own anger, fear, or frustration, and they lack the tools to manage these emotions effectively. This lack of self-knowledge extends to their understanding of their own strengths and weaknesses. They are unaware of their own coping mechanisms, their own resilience, and their own capacity for growth. This ignorance breeds a sense of vulnerability, a feeling that they are ill-equipped to handle the challenges that life throws their way. Furthermore, the inability to remain calm under pressure is often fueled by a deep-seated need for external validation. Individuals who are overly concerned with the opinions of others are particularly susceptible to anxiety in high-stakes situations. They fear judgment, ridicule, or rejection, and this fear can be paralyzing. They prioritize the appearance of competence over actual competence, focusing on projecting an image of control rather than actually maintaining control. This preoccupation with external perception can lead to a host of self-defeating behaviors, such as avoiding difficult conversations, suppressing dissenting opinions, and making decisions based on popularity rather than merit. The pursuit of external validation is a never-ending cycle, a constant need to seek approval from others to feel worthy. It is a fragile foundation upon which to build a sense of self-worth, as it is always dependent on the whims and opinions of others. This dependence makes individuals vulnerable to manipulation and exploitation, as they are easily swayed by flattery, praise, or the threat of disapproval. They become puppets, dancing to the tune of others, sacrificing their own values and goals in the pursuit of acceptance. The trap is also sprung when individuals fail to prepare adequately for challenging situations. They approach high-pressure scenarios with a naive optimism, believing that their natural talent or intuition will be sufficient to carry them through. They underestimate the complexity of the task, the potential for unforeseen obstacles, and the importance of strategic planning. This lack of preparation leaves them vulnerable to unexpected challenges, which can trigger panic and overwhelm their ability to cope. They become reactive rather than proactive, constantly putting out fires rather than preventing them from starting in the first place. Effective preparation involves not only acquiring the necessary knowledge and skills, but also developing a mental framework for dealing with stress and uncertainty. It involves visualizing potential challenges, anticipating possible setbacks, and developing contingency plans for overcoming them. It also involves practicing relaxation techniques, such as deep breathing or meditation, to calm the mind and reduce anxiety. By preparing thoroughly, individuals can build confidence in their ability to handle whatever challenges may arise, reducing the likelihood of succumbing to panic and maintaining composure under pressure. The Machiavellian path to calmness under pressure hinges on the ruthless assessment of risk and the strategic manipulation of perception. Understand that emotional displays are weaknesses to be exploited by your adversaries. Your anxiety, fear, and frustration are valuable intelligence, freely offered to those who seek to control you. Therefore, cultivate a mask of impassivity. Learn to compartmentalize your emotions, acknowledging their existence without allowing them to dictate your actions. This is not about suppressing your feelings, but about controlling their outward expression. Think of a seasoned gambler at a high-stakes poker game. He may be experiencing intense pressure, his heart pounding in his chest, but he maintains a serene expression, revealing nothing to his opponents. He understands that any sign of weakness will be pounced upon. Similarly, in any high-pressure situation, cultivate a poker face. Practice controlling your facial expression, your body language, and your tone of voice. Maintain eye contact, speak calmly and deliberately, and avoid fidgeting or other nervous tics. This outward display of composure will not only project an image of confidence, but will also help to regulate your internal state. The act of controlling your outward demeanor can have a calming effect on your mind and body. Further, the Machiavellian operator understands that chaos is an opportunity. Most people crumble under pressure because they are overwhelmed by the unexpected. They cling to rigid plans and predictable outcomes, and when things deviate from their expectations, they panic. The Machiavellian, however, embraces uncertainty. He views it as a chance to exploit the weaknesses of others. He understands that in moments of chaos, people are more likely to make mistakes, to reveal their true intentions, and to act irrationally. He uses this to his advantage. To achieve this, you must train yourself to think strategically under pressure. Practice analyzing situations quickly and accurately, identifying the key players, the potential risks, and the available opportunities. Develop a flexible mindset, capable of adapting to changing circumstances. Don't become fixated on a single plan. Instead, generate multiple options and be prepared to switch tactics as needed. Consider the chess master, who anticipates his opponent's moves several steps in advance. He is not flustered by unexpected attacks. He has already considered them and developed counter-strategies. He views the chessboard as a dynamic landscape of possibilities, and he exploits every opportunity to gain an advantage. Similarly, cultivate a strategic mindset that allows you to see beyond the immediate chaos and identify the underlying patterns and opportunities. Moreover, consider the deliberate use of pressure against your adversaries. Often, the best way to manage pressure is to redirect it onto others. Identify the vulnerabilities of your opponents, their weaknesses, their fears, and exploit them ruthlessly. Create situations that force them to make difficult decisions under duress. Apply psychological pressure, such as spreading rumors, creating uncertainty, or threatening their interests. The goal is to destabilize them, to force them to make mistakes, and to gain a competitive advantage. This is not about being cruel or malicious, but about being strategic. The Machiavellian understands that the world is a competitive arena, and that survival requires a willingness to use any means necessary to achieve your goals. The hunter does not feel remorse for the prey. He understands that his survival depends on his ability to kill. Similarly, the Machiavellian does not allow sentimentality or morality to cloud his judgment. He is focused on achieving his objectives, and he is willing to use whatever tactics are necessary to succeed. The creation of a controlled crisis, where you are prepared and your opponent is not, allows for the harvesting of opportunities that would otherwise remain hidden. Their mistakes become your stepping stones. Finally, understand the power of calculated detachment. Emotional investment creates vulnerability. When you are deeply attached to an outcome, you become more susceptible to pressure. You become afraid of failure, and this fear can paralyze you. The Machiavellian, however, cultivates a sense of detachment. He views situations objectively, without allowing his emotions to cloud his judgment. He is willing to walk away from a situation if it becomes too risky or too costly. He understands that there are always other opportunities, other battles to be fought. This detachment allows him to remain calm under pressure, to make rational decisions, and to avoid becoming emotionally entangled in the outcome. The surgeon, though invested in the life of their patient, must maintain a clinical detachment to perform the necessary procedures. Emotional distress can result in fatal errors. Similarly, the Machiavellian maintains a distance, a professional assessment of the variables at play. Failure is not an emotional catastrophe, but a data point to be analyzed and learned from. Success is not a cause for euphoric celebration, but a confirmation of strategic effectiveness. Cultivate this detachment. View every situation as a game, a challenge to be overcome. Focus on the process, on the execution of your strategy, rather than on the outcome. By detaching yourself emotionally, you can remain calm, focused, and effective, even in the most high-pressure situations. You transform from a reactor into a strategist, from a pawn into a player. The Roman Empire, a monument to calculated expansion and ruthless efficiency, understood the critical importance of remaining calm amidst the chaos of war. Consider the legions facing a numerically superior enemy. Panic amongst the ranks, a surge of fear, would cascade through the formation, fracturing the shield wall and turning disciplined soldiers into a disorganized mob. The centurions, however, were trained to suppress their own fear and project an aura of unwavering resolve. Their calm, steely gaze, their measured commands, served as an anchor for the men around them. They understood that their personal emotions were a liability, a weakness that could be exploited by the enemy. Instead, they focused on the tactical situation, on the vulnerabilities in the enemy's line, on the opportunities to turn the tide of battle. This detachment, this suppression of personal emotion in favor of strategic calculation, was not merely a matter of discipline. It was a matter of survival. A Roman general, facing the imminent collapse of his flank, could not afford to succumb to despair. He could not allow the fear of defeat to cloud his judgment. Instead, he had to remain calm, assess the situation objectively, and identify the most effective course of action. Perhaps it was a calculated retreat, a strategic repositioning to lure the enemy into a trap. Perhaps it was a desperate counterattack, a bold gamble to shatter the enemy's morale. Whatever the decision, it had to be made with clarity and precision, unburdened by the paralyzing weight of fear. The stakes were not merely personal. They were the fate of the legion, the fate of the empire itself. Think of Julius Caesar, facing seemingly insurmountable odds at the Battle of Alesia. Surrounded by a massive Gallic army, his legions were outnumbered and facing starvation. The pressure was immense, the potential for disaster overwhelming. Yet Caesar remained calm, meticulously planning his defenses, organizing his troops, and maintaining a relentless offensive against the besieged city. He understood that panic would be his undoing, that a moment of weakness would be seized upon by his enemies. Instead, he projected an image of unwavering confidence, inspiring his troops and demoralizing the Gauls. His ability to remain calm under pressure, to think strategically and act decisively in the face of adversity, ultimately secured his victory and cemented his place in history. Consider the siege of a fortress. The defenders are bombarded by catapults, facing constant attacks and slowly running out of supplies. The natural human response is to succumb to fear, to despair, to believe that resistance is futile. But the commander of the fortress must resist this urge. He must maintain order, ration supplies, and inspire his men to continue fighting. He must identify weaknesses in the enemy's siege lines, plan sorties to disrupt their operations, and exploit any opportunity to break the siege. His calm resolve, his unwavering belief in the possibility of victory, is the only thing that stands between his men and utter annihilation. This is the essence of Stoic realism applied to warfare, accepting the brutality of the situation, acknowledging the potential for failure, but refusing to be paralyzed by fear. It is about focusing on what you can control, on the actions you can take to improve your odds, rather than dwelling on what is beyond your control. The Roman soldier, trained in this philosophy, understood that his duty was to obey orders, to fight with courage and discipline, and to accept whatever fate the gods may have in store for him. He did not allow himself to be consumed by fear or doubt, but instead focused on the task at hand, on the execution of his duty. This detachment, this acceptance of the inevitable, allowed him to remain calm and effective even in the face of death. The Roman Empire's success was not solely due to its military prowess or its advanced technology. It was also due to the psychological resilience of its soldiers and its leaders, their ability to remain calm under pressure, to think strategically in the midst of chaos, and to act decisively in the face of adversity. This is a lesson that transcends the battlefield. It is a lesson that can be applied to any situation where you are facing pressure, where the stakes are high, and where the potential for failure is real. By cultivating a sense of detachment, by focusing on the process rather than the outcome, and by accepting the inevitable, you can remain calm, focused, and effective, even in the most challenging circumstances. You can become like the Roman centurion, the stoic general, the unshakable leader who guides his people through the storm. The psychology of remaining calm under pressure hinges on a fundamental shift in perspective, from victim to agent. The individual who succumbs to panic perceives themselves as acted upon, a leaf tossed about by the winds of circumstance. Conversely, the individual who maintains composure understands that while external forces may be formidable, the internal landscape remains their domain. This is not a denial of reality, but a strategic acceptance of it. The pressure exists, the threat is real, but the response is a matter of choice. The panicked mind fixates on the potential consequences, painting vivid scenarios of failure and humiliation. The calm mind acknowledges these possibilities but refuses to be consumed by them. Instead, it dissects the situation, identifying the controllable elements and formulating a plan of action. This is the essence of proactive resilience, transforming anxiety into focused energy. Consider the chess player facing a seemingly insurmountable attack. The novice collapses under the weight of the impending checkmate, their mind racing with fear and self-doubt. The grandmaster, however, calmly assesses the board, calculating potential countermoves and identifying any weaknesses in the opponent's position. They may still lose the game, but they will not succumb to panic. Their focus remains on the process, on making the best possible move in each moment, regardless of the overall outcome. This detachment from the outcome is crucial. It is not about indifference, but about understanding that the future is uncertain, and that dwelling on potential failures only diminishes the capacity to act effectively in the present. The ability to compartmentalize, to separate the immediate task from the larger context, is another key component of remaining calm. A surgeon in the midst of a complex operation cannot afford to be overwhelmed by the weight of responsibility or the fear of making a mistake. They must focus solely on the procedure at hand, on each incision, each stitch, each critical decision. The awareness of the patient's life hanging in the balance is present, but it is channeled into meticulous precision, not debilitating anxiety. This level of focus requires a deliberate act of mental discipline, a shutting out of extraneous thoughts and emotions. It is a skill that can be cultivated through training and practice, by repeatedly exposing oneself to stressful situations and learning to manage the physiological responses that accompany them. The racing heart, the sweaty palms, the shallow breath, these are all natural reactions to pressure, but they can be controlled and redirected. Techniques such as deep breathing exercises, mindfulness meditation, and cognitive reframing can help to regulate the nervous system and to maintain a sense of calm amidst chaos. Moreover, a clear understanding of one's own strengths and weaknesses is essential. The individual who is confident in their abilities is less likely to be rattled by unexpected challenges. This confidence is not born of arrogance or delusion, but of self-awareness and competence. It is the knowledge that one has faced similar situations in the past and has emerged successfully, or that one has the skills and resources necessary to overcome the current obstacle. This understanding allows for a more realistic assessment of the situation, reducing the tendency to catastrophize or to underestimate one's own capabilities. The practice of Stoicism provides a valuable framework for cultivating this mindset. By focusing on what is within one's control, one's thoughts, actions, and judgments, and accepting what is beyond one's control, external events, the actions of others, the whims of fate, one can achieve a state of equanimity that is resistant to the storms of life. This does not mean passively accepting injustice or misfortune, but rather focusing one's energy on what can be changed and accepting what cannot. The Stoic understands that anxiety and fear are often the result of clinging to things that are ultimately beyond our control, and that true freedom lies in relinquishing this attachment. Ultimately, the ability to remain calm under pressure is not an innate trait, but a cultivated skill. It requires a conscious effort to manage one's thoughts, emotions, and behaviors, to develop a realistic perspective, and to focus on the process rather than the outcome. It is a skill that can be learned and honed through practice, and one that is essential for success in any field of endeavor. Consider the case of a high-stakes poker game, a microcosm of the pressures and deceptions found in life itself. Imagine a player, let's call him Anton, facing a substantial bet. The pot is enormous, representing not just money but reputation and the psychological edge over his opponents. Anton holds a seemingly weak hand, but he has observed his opponent, Isabella, exhibiting telltale signs of a bluff, a slight tremor in her hand, a fleeting hesitation in her gaze. The pressure is immense. Most players, succumbing to the adrenaline, would either impulsively fold, relinquishing their stake, or irrationally call, hoping against hope for a lucky break. However, Anton, trained in the art of emotional control and strategic thinking, remains calm. He breathes deeply, slowing his heart rate, deliberately minimizing any outward display of emotion. He reviews the betting history, considering Isabella's past tendencies, her risk tolerance, her potential motives. He calculates the odds, not just of winning the hand, but of influencing Isabella's future decisions based on his current action. Instead of reacting emotionally, he analyzes the situation with cold, calculating precision. This is not mere detachment, but a deliberate act of cognitive mastery. Anton understands that fear and excitement are contagious, capable of clouding judgment and leading to costly mistakes. He refuses to allow Isabella to dictate his emotional state. He maintains a neutral expression, a mask of impassivity that conceals his internal calculations. This mask, however, is not simply a facade. It is a reflection of his internal state of equilibrium. By focusing on the logical aspects of the game, he diminishes the power of emotional impulses. He recognizes that the outcome of this one hand, while significant, is not the ultimate determinant of his success. It is merely one data point in a long and complex game. Anton's calmness is not the result of blind optimism or reckless disregard for risk. It is a calculated choice, a strategic weapon deployed to gain an advantage over his opponent. He understands that Isabella is likely observing him intently, searching for any sign of weakness or uncertainty. By projecting an aura of calm confidence, he aims to sow doubt in her mind, to make her question her own assessment of the situation. He allows a few moments to pass, increasing the tension, amplifying the psychological pressure on Isabella. This is not mere theatricality. It is a deliberate tactic to disrupt her composure, to force her into making a mistake. Finally, after careful deliberation, Anton makes his decision. He calls the bet not with a triumphant flourish, but with a quiet, controlled movement. His voice is even, his expression unchanging. He reveals his hand, a pair of seemingly insignificant cards. Isabella, forced to show her hand, reveals a bluff, a much weaker hand than she had led on. Anton wins the pot not through luck, but through a combination of skill, observation, and most importantly, the ability to remain calm under pressure. This victory is not just about the money. It is about the psychological dominance he has established over Isabella, a dominance that will likely influence their future interactions. The lesson here is not simply that remaining calm is beneficial, but that it is a strategic imperative. In any high-pressure situation, whether it be a negotiation, a competition, or a crisis, the ability to control one's emotions is a decisive advantage. It allows for clear thinking, rational decision-making, and the ability to exploit the weaknesses of others. The consequences of succumbing to pressure are manifold and devastating. A clouded mind cannot discern opportunity from threat. A trembling hand cannot execute a precise maneuver. A panicked voice betrays the insecurity within, inviting exploitation. Observe the architect facing the collapsing structure, the surgeon confronted with unexpected complications, the general receiving news of the enemy's advance. Their reactions, in that instant, determine not only their own fate, but the fate of those who depend on them. The difference between triumph and disaster often hinges on the ability to maintain composure when all seems lost. It is a skill honed through rigorous self-discipline, through the deliberate cultivation of mental fortitude. It requires a deep understanding of one's own limitations and vulnerabilities, as well as the weaknesses of those who seek to exploit them. The ability to remain calm under pressure is not an innate trait, but a cultivated discipline. Consider the chess master facing a formidable opponent. The board is a battlefield of calculated risks and potential pitfalls. Every move is scrutinized, every decision carries weight. The master's mind must remain clear, focused, and unwavering. He cannot allow fear, doubt, or frustration to cloud his judgment. He must anticipate his opponent's moves, calculate the consequences of his own actions, and maintain a strategic perspective even in the face of adversity. His composure is not merely a matter of personal preference. It is a critical component of his success. It allows him to see opportunities that others miss, to exploit weaknesses that others overlook, and to maintain control of the game even when the odds are stacked against him. His calm is not passivity, but active, controlled power. True calm under pressure is not the absence of emotion, but the mastery of it. It is the ability to acknowledge fear, anxiety, and doubt without allowing them to dictate one's actions. It is the capacity to remain grounded in reality, to assess the situation objectively, and to make rational decisions even when the stakes are high. This requires a conscious effort to cultivate mental resilience, to develop strategies for managing stress, and to practice self-control in challenging situations. It is a continuous process of self-improvement, a commitment to honing one's mental and emotional faculties. It is not a destination to be reached, but a path to be followed. To achieve this state requires a constant examination of your own internal landscape. Identify the triggers that cause you to lose your composure. Understand the patterns of thought and behavior that lead to panic or anxiety. Develop strategies for interrupting these patterns, for redirecting your attention, and for regaining control of your emotions. Practice mindfulness, meditation, or other techniques that promote self-awareness and emotional regulation. Cultivate a sense of perspective, reminding yourself that even the most challenging situations are temporary, and that your actions in the present will determine your future outcomes. Develop a deep understanding of your own values and principles, and use them as a compass to guide your decisions in moments of uncertainty. The mastery of calm under pressure also demands a strategic approach to external forces. Learn to anticipate the tactics that others will use to disrupt your composure. Recognize the subtle cues that indicate when someone is attempting to manipulate or intimidate you. Develop strategies for deflecting these tactics, for maintaining your boundaries, and for asserting your authority. Understand the power of silence, the effectiveness of strategic pauses, and the importance of maintaining eye contact. Practice projecting an aura of confidence and competence, even when you are feeling insecure. Remember that perception is reality, and that others will often judge you based on how you present yourself. The cultivation of calm under pressure is not merely a matter of personal benefit. It is a strategic imperative for anyone who seeks to achieve mastery in their chosen field. It is the foundation upon which all other skills and abilities are built. It allows you to think clearly, to make rational decisions, and to act decisively even in the most challenging circumstances. It enables you to exploit the weaknesses of others, to maintain control of the situation, and to achieve your goals with precision and efficiency. It is the ultimate weapon in the arsenal of the sovereign individual, the hallmark of the true master. It is the quiet strength that commands respect, the unwavering gaze that inspires confidence, the unshakable resolve that overcomes all obstacles. Therefore, when faced with the abyss, with the chaotic storm,